Why, hello there. We made it to Tuesday. Now, this wasn't the video I was going to do today, but this is a much bigger news, a bigger story that requires my attention more than the video I was going to make. Because the other one I was going to make was irrelevant compared to this. But this one's much bigger, with no repercussions on either side. Now, the anti gun movement really didn't win today. The survivors of family members that were lost financially won, but there was no legal win. And gun manufacturers didn't take a big loss, in my opinion, the way I see this. But of course, I'm going to report the news from our trusted source from CNN.com. You know, the most trusted news network around the world. I expect it to be full of bias and all that good stuff, but you know, the news is the news, and hopefully we can read through the bias. The family of 5 children and 4 adults killed in the 2012 Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting have reached a $73 million settlement with the now bankrupt gun manufacturer Remington and for insurance. The plaintiff attorney said Tuesday the settlement come across more than 7 years after the family filed wrongful death lawsuit against Remington, the manufacturer of the Bushmaster AR-15 style rifle used in the massacre that left 20 children and 6 adults dead in Newtown, Connecticut. I kind of disagree with this lawsuit, but I understand why the lawsuit went forward. Um, there's only one person responsible for this horrendous act, and that's the person that pulled the trigger. Families have also obtained and can make public thousands of pages of internal company documents that prove Remington wrongdoing and carried important lessons to help prevent future mass shootings, plaintiff attorney said in the news release, and I'm looking forward to that. I want to know what wrongdoing they had. I know they went after the advertising that the company did, and I'm kind of curious how much that played or how much the bankruptcy of Remington actually had effect on this. We established that was clearly true. The immunity protecting the gun industry is now bulletproof. Actually, I think Remington also got sued for a gun malfunction like 3 to 4 years before this. So they're not immune to lawsuit. They're not really being protected. And more people, from my understanding, get killed with hammers, but we don't go after the manufacturer of hammers. I mean, I get weapons like firearms are a little bit different than a hammer, and there's a lot of emotions behind firearms for both pros and cons. So I kind of get that. But anyways, it's not bulletproof. Plaintiff's attorney Josh Koshuff said in a news conference in Trumbull, Connecticut, we hope that they realize that they have skin in the game instead of blaming literally everybody else. I do not blame everybody else except for the person that pulled the trigger. CNN has reached out to the attorney from Remington but has not heard back. The family sued Remington in 2014, alleging it should be held partially responsible for the gun shooting because of the marketing strategy. The 2005 federal law protects many gun manufacturers from wrongful death lawsuits brought on by family members, but the marketing argument was a new approach. I'll be interesting what was in the marketing argument. Lawyers from the plaintiff contended that the company marketed rifles by extolling the militaristic qualities of the rifle and reinforcing the image of a combat weapon, a violation of Connecticut law that prevents deceptive marketing practices. It's kind of a stretch, because I can say a fork is a assault style fork, and has no place being in any household just because the military uses that style of fork. And yes, I know that's probably being obtuse, but an argument could be made. The U.S. Supreme Court in 2019 decided not to take up an appeal from Remington, effectively allowing the suit to move forward. The settlement is also should be a warning to insurance companies covering gun manufacturers. Not only are they going after gun manufacturers, they're going after insurance companies, which should be a dangerous precedent. Insurance companies, it's time for you to start treating the gun industry like you treat me every time I get a speeding ticket. You raise my rates. He says, have you ever heard of an insurance company standing behind an insured that has no care whatsoever for a risk they're creating? Where's the oversight this can be done? Counter argument is everybody knows a firearm is a weapon, and I'm pretty sure their rates are extremely high already due to the fact that a firearm is a weapon. A fork could either be a weapon or it could be a utensil for eating. However, when it comes to firearms, there is no way to say that's anything other than a weapon. It shoots a projectile at a very fast pace, and since the ammunition is rather small, when it hits a surface, it goes through it because of science. The public should stay tuned for more information about the thousands of internal Remington documents the plaintiff obtained. The lawyer said, more work needs to be done to make the documents digestible to the public. Does that mean that they're going to be altering it? I mean, if they're altering it, isn't that altering the evidence, which is not going to be a clear message? I mean, that's how I see it. They're going to be altering it to view to the public, to paint them as the good guys and the gun manufacturer as the bad guys. Julia Uffman, a spokesperson working with the Koskoff law firm, told CNN the settlement has been filed today in bankruptcy court and hasn't technically been approved yet, but she says that there's no exception that the approval won't happen and said it's over. Landmark historic victory? I don't really think so. Relatives of the victims spoke to the new conference to remember their loved ones, celebrate the statement. The landmark history victory sends a forceful and compelling message to manufacturers and to the insurance and the banking industry that supports them that high risk marketing is not profitable and you will be held accountable, said Nikki Hockey, whose 6-year-old son Dylan was killed in the shooting. Hockey said that I'm not going to rehash all this. This is more of a rehash of the victims. Let's see here. In 2020, Remington filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection for the sixth time, just in over 2 years. Lenny Proza, who's I'm not trying to be disrespectful to these family members by not really reading their story. I just don't think it has any relevance into the story outside of the decision, if that makes sense. Let's see here. Now, I thought Remington did go out of business and it was just the insurance that are not really able to continue the payments. So the lawyers and the insurance company decided just to do the bailout and give them everything. But I was actually wrong. The gun maker Remington moves to Georgia in a $100,856 job deal. The gun maker Remington has moved the headquarters from Elyne, New York to Georgia with plans to open a factory and research operation there. The company announced Monday, which was last year of November. Announced Monday they would invest $100 million in operation in La Grande, Georgia, southwest of Atlanta, hiring 856 people over 5 years, which is not really a whole lot. It was not immediately clear what effect the transfer would have on Remington's operation in New York and Tennessee. The company owns parts of the former Remington Outdoor Company, which makes rifles, shotguns, and some handguns after the Former parent auctioned its assets pieces last year during the bankruptcy proceeding in Alabama. So a lot of the Remington name is just a shell of its former self. Investors doing business with Round Hill Group purchased Remington brand gun making businesses, including operation in Elyne, New York, and Lennar City, Tennessee, for $13 million. So I guess it's technically under different ownership, and they're keeping the name sake. Remington is the country's oldest gun maker and began making flintlock rifles in 1816. It swelled into a firearm conglomerate but faces stumping sales, complaints about quality, and legal pressure over the Sandy Hook school massacre. The current company no longer makes the Bushmaster AR-15 rifle used to kill 20 first graders and 6 educators in Sandy Hook shooting in Connecticut in 2012. Gun makers have been leaving their traditional homes in the Northeast as people there become more hostile towards guns and moving to a more politically welcoming settling in the South and West. We're excited to come to Georgia, a state that not only welcomes business, but enthusiasts support and welcomes companies in the firearm industry. Remington CEO Ken D. said in the statement. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp famously pointed a shotgun to another person in a campaign commercial where a Republican was seen in his current office in 2018. Georgia firearm industry is responsible for thousands of jobs and millions of dollars in investment in our community, Kemp said in a statement. I'm a proud owner of some of the Remington's first-class product. Now I'm excited to welcome them to their new home in the Peach State. Scott Malone, an economic development director of City of LeGrand, said Remington has already secured at least one building in the city and will operate a combination of new and renovate facilities. He said local governments would offer property tax amendments plus utilities and infrastructure improvements. I think the company should actually do that. I don't really agree with tax breaks for companies moving in when you have a locally owned business trying to come up. They don't get the same treatment. And that's kind of why I kind of disagree with some of that. But that's just me speaking. Phil Smith, a spokesperson from United Mine Worker of the United States, which represents some of the workers at the factory of Elaine, said that the unions had no information about whether workers in New York will be affected. The new owners recently restarted operations there, calling back more than 200 workers who have been laid off. Local government of New York offered 10 years of tax breaks in exchange for the restart and upgrades. Of course, this was written by the Associated Press. All rights reserved. This material may not be published, broadcast. Oops. Hopefully, I don't get a strike for that. But anyways, I don't think this is technically the win that the anti-gun people want because it did not go to court. It definitely sends a powerful message to gun manufacturers, insurance that actually covers gun manufacturers, and the banks that handle their transactions, that this was just more of a warning shot. Nothing's really set legally. It just seems like the 4 insurance companies that were involved, I guess their lawyers weren't getting paid because the company kind of no longer existed because it was under new ownership, and they decided just to settle it, give the victims pretty much what they want, and it kind of goes away, and it's like that. It's not necessarily a loss for gun rights, gun activists, the Second Amendment people, because it did not go to court. It doesn't really set a standard, although we should be cautious because even though it wasn't a direct hit, it's definitely a warning shot over the bow over the rights. And anybody that asks me why I personally need a gun, I'll just say look at Canada, our northern country neighbor. You also got Australia, New Zealand. You also got England to some parts. And we also have 1930 to 1945 Germany. Why we need the Second Amendment. Second Amendment is not about hunting. Second Amendment is not about personal safety. Second Amendment is to keep the government in check. Because in order to have a free society, the government must fear its people, and the people must not fear the government. And the way that we could do that is to have a armed society. With that being said, leave a comment down below on what your thoughts are. Smash the like and subscribe button on any and all platforms or just the platform that you're currently watching on. But most importantly, have yourself a wonderful day, morning, or evening.